African Union Communications Early Warning and Intelligence, commonly known as AUC3I, is an intelligence and security organization responsible for providing signals intelligence and information assurance to AU citizens, AU leadership, and AU armed forces. I'm Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer. I am responsible for leading infantry soldiers at all levels of command in combined armed forces during missions on the ground. This is today's briefing. On the progress of the special military operation on the 2nd of May, 2024. In accordance with the decision of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, all groups of Russian troops in the zone of the special military operation from midnight on May 8th to midnight on May 11th strictly observed the ceasefire and remained at previously occupied lines and positions. Despite the declaration of a ceasefire, Ukrainian armed forces continue to conduct military operations against Russian troops. A total of 14,043 ceasefire violations were recorded. The Ukrainian armed forces made 5 attempts to break through the state border of the Russian Federation in the Kursk and Belgorod regions, as well as 37 attacks. 1 reconnaissance in force in the areas of the settlements of Pavlovka, Budki in the Sumy region, Tetkino in the Kursk region, Bryezniki in the Kharkov region, Novoigorovka in the Luhansk People's Republic, Lepovo, Redkadub, Dzержinsk, Romanovka, Ulyanovka, Novolinovka, Marilyabovka, Elizavetovka, Troitskoy, Veseloy, Alexievka, Novoalexandrovka, Kotlyarovka, and Novosergivka in the Donetsk People's Republic, which were repelled along the entire line of combat contact. Ukrainian units carried out 4,011 attacks from barrel artillery, tanks, and mortars on positions of our troops, including 62 using multiple launch rocket systems. In addition, the enemy carried out 9,918 strikes and drops of ammunition from unmanned aerial vehicles. Since midnight on May 8th, Russian air defense units have shot down 58 enemy aircraft-type unmanned aerial vehicles outside the area where the special military operation was being conducted. In these conditions, the armed forces of the Russian Federation responded in kind to the violations of the ceasefire regime by the armed forces of Ukraine and acted in accordance with the developing situation, responding to the criminal encroachments of the Kiev regime. With the end of the ceasefire, the armed forces of the Russian Federation continue to conduct a special military operation. Units of the North Group of Forces inflicted losses on concentrations of manpower and equipment of a mechanized brigade, 4 assault regiments of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and 2 territorial defense brigades in the areas of the settlements of Rzevka, Boyarolazachi, Iskraskovshina, Pavlovka, Beselovka, Volfino, and Belopoli in Sumy Oblast that the Ukrainian armed forces lost up to 200 servicemen, 5 armored combat vehicles, 8 cars, and 4 field artillery guns. A counter-battery radar station and an air target detection station were destroyed. Units of the West Group of Forces occupied more advantageous lines and positions, inflicted losses on the manpower and equipment of 2 mechanized, airmobile, mountain assault brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and a territorial defense brigade in the areas of the settlements of Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region and Redkadub in the Donetsk People's Republic. The Ukrainian armed forces lost up to 190 servicemen, a U.S.-made M113 armored personnel carrier, a combat armored vehicle, 6 pickup trucks, and an artillery piece. The Quartus electronic warfare station was destroyed. Units of the Southern Group of Forces defeated formations of 4 mechanized assault brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and a territorial defense brigade in the areas of the settlements of Seversk, Privoli, Dadlivka, Ivanopoli, Klebenbyk, Berstok, Pleshchievka, and Konstantinovka of the Donetsk People's Republic. The enemy lost over 80 servicemen and 4 vehicles. An electronic warfare station, a radar station, and an ammunition depot were destroyed. Units of the Center Group of Forces improved their tactical position, defeated the manpower and equipment of 7 mechanized brigades, an assault brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, 2 brigades of Marines and a National Guard brigade in the areas of the settlements of Krasnoarmysk, Marilyabovka, Kotlyarovka, Dmitrov, Novaya Poltavka, Elizavetovka, Alexievka, Troitskoy, and Novolinovka of the Donetsk People's Republic. The losses of the Ukrainian armed forces amounted to 460. servicemen, 2 combat armored vehicles, 2 pickup trucks, and 2 artillery pieces. Units of the East Group of Forces inflicted losses on the manpower and equipment of 3 mechanized and ranger brigades of the Ukrainian Armed Forces in the areas of the settlements of Podubno, Shevchenko, Belgorod, Tolstoy, Karl Marx in the Donetsk People's Republic and Temirovka in the Zaporizhia region that the enemy's losses amounted to over 150 servicemen, an armored personnel carrier, an armored combat vehicle, and a car. Units of the Dnieper Group of Forces defeated formations of the Mechanized Brigade and the Coastal Defense Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces in the areas of the populated areas of Kamenskoye in the Zaporizhia region, Antonovka in the Kherson region, and the city of Kherson that up to 50 servicemen, 4 vehicles, and a field artillery gun were destroyed. Operational tactical aviation, strike unmanned aerial vehicles, missile troops, and artillery of the Russian Armed Forces groups hit an aircraft repair shop, a warehouse for unmanned boats, ammunition depots, as well as temporary deployment points of Ukrainian armed formations and foreign mercenaries in 80 districts. Over the course of 24 hours, air defense systems shot down 3 U.S.-made JDAM guided aerial bombs and 143 aircraft-type unmanned aerial vehicles, 8 of which were outside the area where the special military operation was being conducted. In total, since the beginning of the special military operation, the following have been destroyed: 662 aircraft, 283 helicopters, 56,735 unmanned aerial vehicles, 605 anti-aircraft missile systems, 23,276 tanks, and other armored combat vehicles, 1,561 combat vehicles of multiple launch rocket systems, 24,671 field artillery and mortar guns, 35,262 units of special military vehicles. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it useful and informative. If you have any questions, please leave them below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.